All right, in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make a pinch pot. And for your pinch pot assignment, you'll be making two of them that have a correlating theme, so they're related in some way. So here's a really good example from a student in the past. He made two monkey heads, but one having a happy expression, one having a shocked expression. So that's how the two can, be identical but still different at the same time. But we'll go more into detail on that in class. So first, we obviously need to learn how to make a pinch pot. So first, I would start with about tennis ball or an orange size piece of clay. And then what you're going to do, after it's nice and round like a perfect sphere, hold it in one hand, and then with your other hand, use your thumb and push down in the center. And how far I'm going down is, so my thumb right now is about like right there at that line, the bottom of my thumb. Then what you're going to do is you are going to rotate the piece of clay around one hand, while with the other hand, with your thumb and fingers, you are going to gently pinch and then pull up the walls. Now, when you're pulling up the walls, try to bend them a little bit inward, because if you are pulling the walls outward, which is very natural to do, especially for beginners, the pinch pot is going to get wider and wider and wider, and it's going to be floppy, and we do not want that. So try to pull the walls inward. And again, that's pinching and pulling as you're rotating it. And it's going to take a while. This is a very repetitive process. So the tennis ball sized piece of clay is going to get slightly bigger and bigger with a larger opening the more you rotate. Now, as I'm doing this, you'll see at the very top, it's starting to crack, especially right there. Personally, I wouldn't worry about that too much, like still, mend it every so often. But when you're done rotating the pinch pot, you are going to trim off the top with a knife anyway, so that the top of it is nice and even, just like this. This is another example of a past student. They did shooting stars. And then what I like to do after a certain point, so the opening is about that big. So with our ruler, this is about like 3.5 inches wide right now from end to end. But I like to put it then on the table and still rotating it with one hand while pulling the walls up with the other. Now, the thickness for the walls, you want them to be about at the very end. I would say, here's some pinch pots I made earlier. It's about 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch thick. That is the goal. 1/2 inch thick, I will accept it, but you definitely don't want to go any bigger than that. And the reason why is in the kiln, thicker pieces have a higher chance of exploding, which obviously ruins the project. And it could also ruin the project of neighboring pieces from other students. So here we go. Here's the opening I have right now. And as you can see, like I said, it's getting larger and larger. So now what I'm doing is I'm kind of cupping the pinch pot with one hand, still while rotating it. And then on the inside, I'm using my entire thumb and smoothing the inside of the walls. Smoothing is a big part of all of the projects. It's a big part of the rubric, and we'll be very picky with grading smoothness, which means no cracks, no bumps, nothing like that. So you can kind of see the inside and how nice and smooth it is. Now, normally I would spend more time on this, but for the sake of the demo, I am rushing through this. So your guys' pinch pots will definitely be better than this one. So now I'm just using my thumb and index finger to still raise up those walls because you will need to meet a measurement requirement, and that's the height of your pinch pot has to be at least 3 inches. For the first mini assignment, the hollow egg, I'll say it can be about like 2 to 2.5. If it's 3, that's awesome. Because with the hollow egg, we're not firing them. It's really for practice. So see, we see the thickness is getting smaller and smaller, thinner and thinner, which is good. And again, this is what I was explaining earlier. The top of the pinch pot is going to be cracked in areas. Hopefully yours is not as bad as mine. But I'm going to trim it off anyway with the knife. And try to have the knife as level and parallel to the table as you can, because take a look at this example as well. See how even that top is? It's almost perfectly parallel with each other. Like all around, I mean. There we go. And then one that I made earlier. But there is another step after you trim that works really well to make it nice and even. And that's you'll turn your pinch pot upside down and lightly, very lightly pat down on the bottom so that the table flattens it. So here's what I mean. I trimmed it, I'm going to put it upside down, very lightly press down, and since the table's nice and flat, it's going to make the top perfectly flat and even as well. See? There we go. Now, this is too thick and uneven in spots. So let's take a look at how much these are, how thick these are. So at the thinnest spot, it is half an inch, and that's this end right here. As you can see, it's plainly the thinnest. Whereas on the other side, it's a little over half an inch. That's this side. So 2 options of what you could do. First, I suggest still raising the walls as best as you can, and then you'd have to trim the top again. Hopefully you won't have to too much. Or, because let's see how tall this is first. This is perfect. This is 2.5 inches. So to help with thickness, since I'm meeting the measurement requirement, at least for the hollow egg assignment, is you can take this tool, the ribbon tool, and you can use it to start carving away parts of the clay to get that even thickness. See, so we have this really thin piece that we've just shaved off. I'm going to keep going. And again, I'm going faster than honestly I'm really comfortable with, but for the sake of the demo video and class time, I am going a little bit faster. So for you guys, just a reminder, take your time. For the pinch pot projects, you guys have about 1.5 weeks to work on these. So take your time and make them perfect. Okay, so I shaved off some pieces, and now I'm going to use my thumb to smooth out the inside, cupping the outside with the other hand. And there we go. Now for smoothing out the outside, because as we can see, there is some bumps, there's some scratches, cracks in there. Right up here, these little folds, I want to get rid of all of those. So one thing you could do is use a rib. I like the blue rubber ones. And similar of what I was doing with my thumb on the inside, I'm going to use the rib on the outside. Now, you can kind of tell on the rib that one side right here is perfectly straight up and down, whereas the other side it's slightly curved. You want the curved side to be the one that's touching the pinch pot. And then you'll very lightly, with one hand and all 4 fingers on the inside supporting the wall, and then with the other hand with the rib, kind of like what you did with the ribbon tool, you're going to scrape up very lightly. And it shaves off just this little bits of clay, but it makes all the difference. Still needs some work, but you can still notice the improvement. Best way to smooth, maybe not best, but I'd say the most common way is just using your fingertips. If your fingers start to get too dry, you'll notice that when you're rubbing, it may start to crack. So that just means you need to run your hands under some water again. So there you are. That's how you make a pinch pot.